This is a special episode for me because I'm inviting you to listen in on a conversation with my good friend and mentor, Louis Stone. Louis, who I call Dr. Stone, was my last professor in my days at Clemson University, and he also helped me to get started in real estate. When I was 22 years old, I would bounce ideas and strategies off him. I would ask him endless numbers of questions. He would go look at properties with me, and ultimately I got money from him to do deals, both as a partner and as a lender for over 20 years. But more than that, Dr. Stone is a thinker. He was my personal Socrates, that ancient Greek philosopher who used to challenge his students with really tough questions. So some of my favorite times with Dr. Stone have been walking on the nature trails that we have here in the Clemson area and just philosophizing for hours. Of course, talking about real estate and business, but also talking about literature and culture and history and every subject under the sun. So you're going to hear one of those conversations. It's going to be focused mainly on real estate and business, but I hope you benefit from the generous mind of my mentor and friend as much as I do. Enjoy. So Dr. Stone, I've told lots of stories about when I first met you, actually, all the way back at Clemson University. And for people who haven't heard the story, I graduated, I was a pre-med major. I thought biology was my thing, but I had this little inkling that business and entrepreneurship would be fun. And I took your class, a management class. And my version of the story, I'm going to tell the brief version of my version of the story, but I've never heard your version of that story. I think it'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Is that my version of the story is I'm sitting in class, you're just kind of blowing my mind with some of the stuff you're talking about, and not only the topic of the class, but also what you were doing outside of class. You were talking about, you were riding around, you were buying properties, it sounded like your lifestyle. I said, I want that. Like, I want to ride around and not have to go sit in a desk job.
Absolutely.
And then the next part of the story was I bugged you a bunch after class saying, how do you do this? How do you do this? And you're like, Chad, why don't you let's go have lunch? And that lunch and being able to go talk to you after class was like a fork in the road for me, because I didn't go the other way. I said, I want to be like Dr. Stone. And but I'm curious to hear your version of the story, because I know a lot of people are intimidated to go talk to a person who's more experienced. And how did you think about it when I was up there just bugging you to come right around with you?
No, I really enjoyed it. I tried to encourage that because it was a big auditorium class. And, there's very little personal interaction in a room full of 100 people. And so I was trying to encourage a few people, hey, let's take let's quit 10 minutes early. If a few people come on, let's talk some. I'd like to know some of who you are and what you're doing. And then you came up and you told me I knew who you were because you were, of course, a famous football player.
Had a reputation for better or worse.
Oh, yeah. I think I saw you tackle Phil Rivers or something.
Philip Rivers was a big quarterback for NC State, and he was bigger than me, and I played linebacker. I think I hit him and I fell down, not the other way around.
Yeah. Well, of course, I'd seen you on the football field, and I said, this guy's something else. And I think I asked you a dumb question, which sort of startled you. I said, well, Chad, now what are you doing? I'm in pre-med, and I think I'm going to be a doctor. And a lot of my family are doctors. And I said, Chad, why do you want to be a doctor? And I don't, well, why doesn't everybody want to be a doctor? I mean, it can be. No. I could sense that you were beginning to feel that the system, what was happening in medicine, that you just be a cog in a wheel. Yeah. And you wanted to be a wheel. Yeah.
It felt a little Matrix-like to me. I'm a big fan of the Matrix movies, and going into the system and the grad school, and I was like, no. And then I sensed that you were somebody. I said, I don't know what he's doing, but I want to do. I just want to ride around. I don't want to do that.
If you'd observe, I didn't know what I was doing either.
Isn't that the funny thing?
Yeah. I said, Chad, I think I gave you a project. I said, well, you want to do something just for a project? Yeah. Because you'd already aced all the quizzes, and I said, Chad, well, you've read the book. You want to do a little independent project? Yeah. And I said, I've got a piece of property up here on the contract on Lake Jocassee.
Yep.
And I don't know if there's anything I can do with it or not. I want to test it out and see if it'll work, and if not, I won't buy it. And I said, one of the things I was thinking about was an RV park, RV rentals. And I said, why don't you go up there and see if you think that's a good idea or not? You went around, checked all the market and supply and all that business. And I think we decided it was there's too much front-end investment to get into it. It's not simply just clearing off some land and bringing people in. So anyway, we moved on from that. And then you went back to Noonan.
Yeah, moved back home and lived with my parents for a year.
Yeah, you did. And you went down there, and I came down to visit you one time.
Yeah, that
you
was
and
fun.
your dad. Yeah.
You saw the whole business operations. So I was working with my dad as a bird dog, just basically finding deals, because my dad had rental properties. He was flipping houses. We went down there, and it was. I remember that experience because some of the things you started asking questions, and there's some good things we were doing, but then you had this way of this kind of Socratic question, like, why would you do that, Chad? I'm like,
that's exactly
well, that's just how we do it. What do you mean? Why do we do it that way? And you wouldn't like hit me with a hammer. You would just be like, well, why are you doing it that way? And if I couldn't defend myself, then I started saying, well, wait a minute. I don't know why I'm doing it that way.
Yeah. Well, I thought you had hit on a success formula down there around Noonan, where you figured out that there's a rental apartment business that people would like to be in houses.
Right.
And if you could give them, say, an $800 a month house payment versus an $800 rental payment, they might be interested.
Yep.
So you hit on that, and you worked your way backwards.
Right.
Now, how did I do that? And if I recall, you figured out that I'm going to spend about $20,000 on each house. Windows, you had your little package.
Fix it up, remodel it.
And you could say, with $20,000, I can do a makeover. And I want to make $20,000. So, and what kind of payment is $800 a month? That's $120,000. $120, take off 20 for my profit, 20 for my makeup. I can pay 80. And that was your formula. It was perfect. And then you started looking about 10 miles up the road at something. I said, you don't want to do that, do you?
Yeah. We had a shiny object syndrome. There was some other town that supposedly had better cash flow. And you said, no, Chad, I don't think so.
You got all your stuff right here. You just pop it on all of them at the same time. Yeah,
you were 100% right.
So anyway, then you came back up here after you had you were sure you knew what you wanted to do.
I love Atlanta. Atlanta's my home city, but I love the small town life. Clemson, being near the waterfalls, and it just seemed fun. You were up here running around and doing stuff, and my business partner Tommy was up here, and we could play basketball. We played pickup basketball back in those days, and that was fun. So we had that connection, and I do want to go back. So once I moved back up here, so you had a pivotal moment when you kind of that fork in the road to go be an entrepreneur and not go back into grad school. That was huge for me, and you were there for that. The other was when I came back to Clemson, I had been finding deals in Atlanta, and I had that formula. So I think I have this funnel of, I look off market, I look on MLS. I was hunting for a lot of deals. I had that, but I didn't have the money to buy my own deals. Yeah. And you and I were talking about it. I said, Dr. Stone, I think I can find deals that are worth 110 or 120, just like we were looking at. But I think we could buy them for 50 or 60 and put 20 or 30 in them. But I don't have the money. Yeah. And I said, could we do something together? And I think you just said, yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll
go to the bank and get a loan.
Right.
And the signature on it will be mine too, so that's good, And so I think that's what we did.
The very first deal.
You started with Bill Harley at First Citizens.
Yep.
And that went on forever.
Well, that was a huge one. The thing you told me at the time, you said, and I want to ask you how you thought to take a chance on that. But the thing you did for us on our end, Tommy and I were brand new. We had no credit. We didn't have bad credit, but we had no credit. We had no credibility with the banker. Yeah. And so you came on, and we had this deal that we could buy for 55 and put 20 or 30 in it. It was worth 110 or 120. And so you went and talked to the banker and used your credibility for them to loan the money to us, basically to buy it and fix it up. And maybe, I think you had a little bit of cash into it too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then we flipped it. It was an adventure, and we made a little bit of money, and we split it 3 ways, I think, was, if I remember right.
I think we made $1,000
We would not much money.
Because the paint job killed most of it. You remember you got the first paint job?
Yeah, the first painter I hired was on drugs or something.
Like $2,000, and then it cost another $2,000 to undo his work, and then another $2,000 to fix it.
And then I hired a carpet guy who was bad, and his seams between rims looked like the Grand Canyon, and it was so I made a bunch of mistakes. And so speaking of that, how do you take a chance on young guys who want to come, or gals or whoever, I mean, that was a pretty big chance for you to take to even invest with us. It seems like it to me.
Well, there wasn't a lot of downside, I didn't think, You got it right. When you start out getting a deal,
right,
that you got a lot of margin for error.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to build that in as much as possible.
Yep.
And we had it. So I said, worst case is, just break even or whatever and move on. I mean, a lot of new ventures, I'm happy to break even the first time I go into it,
right,
because sometimes it takes you 3 or 4 deals to figure out what you're doing wrong, and you're losing the whole time.
Right.
So it's a learning curve.
Yeah.
But no, we didn't have much of a learning curve on that one.
Yeah. We were positive, and then we had enough. We had enough equity in the deal. We bought it low enough that all the mistakes we made, we still didn't lose money. So
got to build in some mistakes, particularly on a new venture, because you're just not going to get it. You're not going to get it right first time,
right,
most of the time. And if you get it right first time, that means you're going to get it right second time.
Yeah. You reminded me of that too. Every time you think you get a little model, I've got this, Dr. Stone, I've got this business model, I figured it out, I've got it all figured out, and then you say, well, what about this? What if you do that business model and the market changes and things? So I think we always talked about plan A, B, and C, and D.
We always had 4 plans, I think, A, B, C, D. Yeah.
Let's talk about what those were, because I think that was one of the key things that you taught me early on.
Plan, yeah.
Plan A would be to flip the house and make
basically
$20,000.
exit strategies, off ramps, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Start with A. That's the one we like if we can get it. And that was we take the deal and we sell it. We take our money and we go home.
Yep.
And we're out of the deal and we move on. The other deal is we can't sell it for cash. There's going to have to be some financing. Mm-hmm. The guy doesn't, or he can't take it all out. So I've done tons of these deals where a guy had decent credit, and I had a bank that would work with us, and they would loan him to 80%, for example. Mm-hmm. And I would finance a second for 20% or 15%. And I didn't care when he paid it, because he was going to cash out at some point, a few years anyway. Mm-hmm. And so that was always, because the 20%, a lot of times, that's your profit anyway.
Right.
So you're not eating into your cash, because you got that 20% in there anyway. So you're just deferring some of your profit.
You were flexible in the financing. And,
Yep.
And for people hearing that, like if you go to the traditional, like, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA loan, is probably not that kind of financing person who'll let you take a second back, but you would go to a local bank who would also give you the construction loan, maybe the same one we went to in the very beginning, and maybe talk about, and you do such a good job of this, you would give them the big picture, say, we've got this property, we're buying it low, we're going to try to turn renters into homeowners, we're going to sell it to someone, and then they might not have a huge down payment. Would you be okay with us taking back a second? We'll be behind you, so if all our money's at risk, if we're
exactly.
gonna. So they knew that we were on or you were on the hook too.
That to me is a perfect model if you can get the bankers to loosen up to it. Mm-hmm. That's what we were doing. Again, I mentioned Bill Harley at first, Citizen, Donald Robinson. They knew me, and after a while they said, hey, he's not going to let that second go bad.
Right.
They knew that, and which means he's not going to let the first go bad.
Yes.
And so. That was fine, and in one case, say I had somebody had a divorce, and they said, well, we don't want any money out of it. We've been paying over 2 years. We just want to settle up our lives and go a different direction. We'll just give it back to you. So I went to Bill Harley. I said, Bill, they're gone. Put me back on that first temporarily till I find somebody, and I'll keep moving. And I go in and do some carpet and stuff. And then actually when I sold it again, I made more money. Mm-hmm. But Bill never worried about the second, because he knew I'd take care of the first if it had to be. Now, that is a really great way to do anything. Yeah. Another variation on that was when my cousin and I did a double-wide development up in Travelers Rest. And we were selling the lots and trying to get $15,000 a lot, for example, which we had like $3,000 in. So had a lot of margin in there. And we weren't selling the mobile homes. That was a dealer selling them. Right. So we would finance the $15,000. We tried to provide some financing just for the land part. And so there was a local creative banker who said, I will loan your customer the $15,000. It'd be my loan to them. But you have recourse. If they don't pay, you come in and pay, right? Now I'm going to loan them like $12,000 or whatever, but that $12,000 is not leaving the bank. It's going to stay here as CDs, which is your further collateral.
Wow. Okay.
And you're paying. I'm going to give you 3 or 4% on those CDs, but I'm charging this guy 9%, so I'm happy.
Interesting.
and he said, now if a guy don't make a payment, I'm going to call you, come in and make a payment. Well, that worked very well.
Just to make sure I understood that, you had some land that you bought and you divided it up.
Yeah.
Your ultimate cost per lot when you sold it was $3,000 or so.
Yeah. I forgot one part. We financed a well and a septic tank into the $15,000.
Okay.
So
that's an extra cost above.
Yeah, and so he would give us enough to cover that cost too, which was about, back then it was like $3,000, $4,000. So in other words, we had zero money in the deal. We just had paper and lots of good notes, and but we didn't have any money at risk. So
I want to double click on that because this is another principle. So I'm gonna I want to get some of these principles you would always teach, and one of them was a free roll of the dice.
That's right.
And so I want to explain that deal you're talking about. Your cost is about $3,000 in the deal,
and another $2,000 or $3,000. Yeah.
So you had about $5,000, $6,000, but you usually got $5,000 or $6,000 down from the customer.
Something down. Yeah.
But you were selling it for $15,000 or $20,000, whatever it was.
15.
So you got some down payment. They got most of your money back, and then your whole profit margin you were willing to finance. Essentially.
That's exactly it.
And leave it in the deal.
That's a great way to put it. If you can just find a way to leave your profit in the deal as part of the financing and not have to eat the profit.
Right.
You know, if you can defer, you build up a lot of money that way. And you know, you can afford to lose one every now and then. I've just let a second go every now and then, but it wasn't my deal with a bank. But you know, but will you ever lose? Yeah, I've lost once. That's fair enough. I'll take that.
Yeah.
That's another. If you don't mind me expanding on that, you remember Mike McDonald, the red-headed guy?
Yeah, he built houses for you.
Crazy guy. Yeah, he was something else. He was like you. He was just he could do anything. He built 6 houses in 1 year. But I worked with him, and we had a deal where I would take a lot, and to get him started, I would say, I'll go ahead and put septic tank, water tap in, and the foundation. So you're ready to fly.
Yep.
You know, the framers come in, and the lot's $12,000. The septic tank, water tap, and the foundation $8,000. So I'm going to loan you $20,000. Okay, you owe me $20,000 now, and you start building. You go get the money to build a house. I'll subordinate. Now, what happens at the end is you sell that house for $100,000. Okay, you owe me $20,000. You get the bank will finance your customer for $80,000. I'll let that note that you owe me be the down payment for your customer.
Right.
So you assign that note to me.
Yep.
And then that customer now owes me $20,000. You take the cash and go, and you can keep rolling. And you know you got cash coming in. You can build how? You built 6 in less than a year doing that way.
Yep.
But
so this young builder who they basically they made their profit on the the difference between what they paid you and so they would have to keep their margins on the build.
He'd walk away with 15. He would get the cash out at closing. Then maybe I have to go back through these things in more detail, but the general principle is always the same. You know, financing is magic.
Yes.
Oh, it's just magic. And you can sell anything, you figure out how to finance it.
You would, and I want to stick on this formula both with your RV park, with these houses with Mike. You always told me a story back in the 80s. You developed a small subdivision. You did the same thing, took back a bunch of seconds. The common theme, just so people understand that at the beginning of the pictures, you would go find, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, a piece of land that maybe had a little house, old farmhouse on it or something. Yeah. And you would, maybe it's a 10-acre parcel or something like that. And you would look at how much road frontage there was, and essentially you would carve off the little house,
right?
Fix it up, flip the house, and you would look you would try to buy it at a good enough price that you could flip the house and almost pay for the entire deal. So now you have the land free.
That's right.
And then you'd have some development costs and things like for septics, and that's brilliant. I mean,
I had a guy, Ray Harrison, who was local, and he knew every farmer, and everybody knew him, and he would call these Louis deals, where He said,
you know it's good when you have a deal named after you. Yeah.
He said, I'll find you an old house and run down, and usually they looked awful, and you know, and they would do that. And by the way, back to what we're talking about on that's a perfect model right there. And in that case, you know, the opportunities change, but at that time I could do the financing on the land, and the mobile home dealer would finance the double wide,
right?
Which I thought was crazy.
Yeah,
but they were willing to do it.
We'd rather have the land. You and I.
Well, I got the land.
I want the land.
You got something, you're double wide on my land? I'm good with that.
Yeah, I can foreclose your double wide off my land.
And it happened.
It does.
It happened. I got 3 or 4 that way.
Yeah.
They said, well, we don't want it to move this thing. I said, well, I don't know if I want it or not. Well, would you get $15,000 for it? Well, maybe.
Yeah, something they paid 50 or 60 for.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll pay you 15.
Yeah, you want it? Yeah, he said, because you move it, you got to pay some back rent. You might tear up my yard.
Yeah.
You know, you got some liability here. Why don't you just leave it there? And then we did that, but that worked fine.
When you're and that's the other thing, and when you're the lender or when you're the financing, you can often get back into deals. Like you'll become a landlord, you'll become a flipper, you know. So, but man, the financing that I think that was one of the key lessons I learned from you early on was that you have 4 Fs. You told me,
we go.
Can you unpack the 4 Fs of real estate? Because that was my business model from the very beginning.
I think we still use it.
Yeah.
You know, somebody's got to find the deal. That's a very valuable person, a bird dog, and that was, you know, and you were good at it, and you had you could mine data, and you could find all the people over 85 with you know, widows or whatever. You could zero in on those kind of markets, but then you could just ride around and look too. Yeah. But somebody's got to find the deal. If you got enough profit in the deal going in, it's, you know, you're probably gonna make it work.
Right.
And then you got to arrange the financing. That's the second F.
So first F, find it. Second F, finance.
Yeah. Let me go through the 4. Somebody's got to find the deal. Somebody's got to finance the deal. Somebody's got to fix up the deal, and somebody's got to fill up the deal. Put somebody, the end user, in the deal. And so I think we figured out if you want a foolproof way to do it, if you can find a good enough deal, we used to grade ourselves.
Right.
Yeah, we were A in that. We were A in financing. We were really good at figuring that out, and we're pretty good at filling it up. You know, finding an end user, fixing up.
I give myself a B minus.
I give you a C.
He's the professor, not me.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you crawling up behind the houses and doing all that.
No.
And I don't know. You're too big to get up the house anyway.
Football players in crawl spaces.
No. You gotta have little guys doing that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think we just decided. Yeah, we'll live with that. Yeah. So we're C's. So what? We're A's over here, and that's the whole. That brings our average up to like a 3.9 as far as we figure it.
Yeah. And the brilliant thing about the 4 Fs is it's very flexible. Because you would coach me and say, Chad, you're not really that good at fixing up properties. Because I was thinking I was in the fix and flip business, and you're like, Chad, you're not that good at that. You're really good at finding them and financing. You seem to have a knack for it, and you did too. And so I leaned into that. Whereas somebody else, though, if they're a contractor, Mike McDonald, he was pretty good at projects and construction. And I know people who are excellent at fixing up, and that's just their thing. That's not us, but they can make money on it too. So it's
very good point. I think there are 2 questions about where you're going to try to excel on those 4 Fs, and one is where you think you're competent, and the other one is, do you want to do it?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, and you probably run into this, they say, oh, I could fix up, I could do sheetrock, I could do this, I could do that. Kind of like the cook that thinks he can run a restaurant.
Yeah.
But there's more to it than fixing it up. I mean, you watch these TV programs, and you say, oh, I can swing a sledgehammer, and I can do all that.
Right.
But those other F's, you really could, you know, don't go thinking that you're going to be great in the real estate business because you fix up houses.
Right.
Yeah.
You got to find. You're forgetting the other 3 Fs. If you just try to fix up houses.
Yeah. Right.
There's a lot of people who've been great builders who've gone out of business because they over leveraged. They didn't get good financing. Yeah. They didn't control financing.
Yeah, it's got to make sense. I mean, you know, when I say you have to be good at it, doesn't mean necessarily you have to be one in there swinging a hammer. But if you think you've got kind of contacts, and you've got people that you can use, and you can run the project as a general contractor.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine. But
there's also people that have vision. Like I've been so impressed with some people that they look at a house and they can understand like it's gonna be here, this is gonna be here. We're gonna tear that wall out. Like it's like the HG. Everybody loves HGTV because hometown. They draw the picture of what it's gonna look like.
Right.
If that's you and you can manage a project, excellent. Like that. But I see so many people. They see those shows and then they think, oh, I could go do that, and they're a spreadsheet person, or oh, I could go buy a good deal and negotiate, but they're like, they're an introvert and they don't really like to talk to people. Like, that's I think what you're saying, and I took to heart was you got to know yourself. What are you competent at? What do you What do you like to do? And then there's room to make money in real estate and the 4 Fs, and you could find yourself there somewhere.
You really got to have staying power in terms of motivation.
Yeah.
But you start working on a house, you get 90% through, and it takes just as much time to finish the last 10%. And you're like, man, you burn out. And so you got to do that. Now, unless you, for example, decide that you're not going to take it all the way. I mean, there's sort of a niche for just coming in and doing the initial cleanup and maybe ripping out a sheet wall and giving a spray paint job and saying, this is a new house you finished.
Kind of a wholesale deal where you don't wholesale it quickly, but you fix it up a little bit and then...
You just get to the point where some people can take over and, even get their quotes for them. You need 20 sheets of plywood, you need this, you need that, and here's the budget for the deal. That's a big help. But that's another way to go. I'm kind of thinking that might be a sweet spot.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's a good feedback, and I want to shift gears a little bit. But there's a story that I shared in the book, The Small Mighty, it was actually in the Retire Early with Real Estate book. I've shared a lot of your stories, by the way. I hope you don't mind me borrowing your stories.
No.
I gave you credit.
Just keep sending the checks.
All right. There's a story that really made an impact on me from a wealth building standpoint. Was about, and I don't remember, it was your boss maybe at your textile mill or somebody when you were in your 20s. A guy said, "Louis, you want me to tell you how to be rich?" And would you mind telling the story? Because I've told the story, but I might have not told it right.
Back when I was in the rag business, and so this guy, he said, Louis, I think you got something going here. If you start making $50 a week, you live on $50 a week. You start making $100 a week, you live on $50 a week. You start making $200 a week, you live on $50 a week. Now, that's true. That is so true, and it was a very simple way of putting it. But if you, let's say, talk about macroeconomics, which is a boring subject. Savings equals investment. That's one of the formulas. No savings, no investment. And that's the whole economy runs that way. The Chinese save everything. They got all this money to invest. We don't save that much. We have to use their money. But if you can't have any investment unless you've got some savings, and that savings then can be leveraged against debt. So that works. Yeah.
So this mentor of yours, this person who is already more wealthy, he basically said, Louis, if you just do that, if you just learn how to live off $50 a week at the time and keep increasing your income, that gap between your income and your savings. I remember you saying, like, if you just do that, Louis, you can't help but become rich.
Yeah,
you can't help.
It says, and put another way, it says, you make the change from working for money working for you. That's what capitalism is all about. Yeah. This French economist a few years had a book about capital makes more money than labor. Well, guess what? This is a capitalist society. Right. And so you got to be a capitalist in this society.
You got to figure out how to go from your labor to the capital. If you don't make that jump, then you're out of the game.
And that's not saying you can't make a ton of money in labor, but you went and take that money and then invest it. Kind of reminds you, the Rich Dad Poor Dad thing, the 4 quadrants.
Right.
You can be in all 4 quadrants at one time. You just want to shift more into this quadrant. Get away from the cubicle. And that kind of thing. But you're telling people, get away from the cubicle.
Right. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the employee or the business owner, but at some point you got to be shifting some of your money over to owning businesses, to owning investments, and if you don't do that, then you're going to be working long. You're never going to get out of that rat race. You're never going to get out of it.
And then with the old, what it is, if you make an extra $25, you spend an extra $30. I mean,
borrow a little bit more.
Well, a little bit more, because Friedman, the economist, used to say that people don't spend their money now; they spend the money they think they're going to make. Future, they spend it, they anticipate it, and that's what we do. And then the other thing is, you do this long enough, and then after a while you say, well, I didn't really need that anyway. What's the big deal?
Yeah. you always had a conversation with me. I've told people on the show before that I made a list in 2007. It was kind of one of our crisis moments when we were growing too much, and you were giving me feedback. And Tommy said, Chad, we just need to sit down and slow down and talk about this. And we did this exercise where we wrote down all the things that if I had all the money in the world, what would my day look like? What kind of things would I do? Yeah. And I wrote down things like, I want to go walk in the woods, because we would take these 3-hour walks in the middle of the day. Yeah. I want to play basketball in the middle of the day. I just got married. If I have kids, I want to be present with the kids. I want to travel abroad. I wrote down all these things. And the thing that shocked me about that was that money was definitely a part of it, but like most of those things didn't cost that much money.
Yeah, they did.
But I needed a lot of time, and I was using all my time paying bills or being in the rat race. And if I could just kind of follow your lead and just get some of that basic stuff taken care of, and also keep my expenses low, the sooner that I'd get a little bit of income coming in passively to cover the little bit of expenses I had, then I'm free to have my time back, which is what we always wanted, right?
And you find once you get your time back, you'll find opportunities you never knew were out there. Things that you really think, well, this is a good thing. I want to do this. Like you talk about working with refugees, or the trail, and other stuff you do. I really like doing this, and you actually can afford, even within your own business. For example, I got into this low income housing stuff up in Walhalla, which is a long story. But after I got in it, and we're just going to do one house for a church that needed to get rid of a building. They wanted $10,000 for it, and they go, well, you buy it, get us out from under this. And so we didn't do that. Anyway, the preacher said, well, I said, well, I'd like to help you guys out, but I don't know what I'd do with that house. He said, well, I got a guy to work on it. He needs to work. And it was Paul Galbraith. And so he said, yeah, I need to work. Let me fix it up for you. I can do it for $10,000. You'll have a $30,000 house. And I'll get you a renter, and I'll collect the money. So we started doing that. We did 20 of them. And then I got into this thing. I said, this is not a bad thing. I make a little money, but we got some jobs here. Paul was rounding up these low-skilled laborers and got some cheap houses for people, $300-400 a month. I said, yeah, why not? So I had the luxury that I could do that.
Right.
And I had the bankers that were willing to support that, like again, Donna Robinson. I'd say, Donna, I want to do one of these little $10,000 houses again, and I'm going to put about, I don't know what in it, but it's going to be worth. She said, what's going to be worth? $30,000. Okay, I'll loan you 21 or 24, and you just go do it. No draws, no anything.
Yeah.
I could take that money and stick it in my pocket. Relationship. So I really never had any money in it. Never had money in any of them.
That's amazing.
I know. And
back to the financing.
I know. OPM, other people's money.
Yeah.
And so, I never made any money, but ended up one of these days, I got all these mortgages now, because after a while, I started, doing all the financing for them. Good renter? Yeah, I'll sell it to you.
You've turned a lot of $300, $500 a month renters into buyers of those same homes.
Absolutely.
A lot. I mean, you've had dozens and dozens of those.
Yep, and I got a woman, single mom with Walmart, and she's got a $350 a month house payment. Yeah. 2-bedroom brick house.
And we're in 2024. We're not talking about 1985.
No, right now.
No, this is
and they
this
can't
is real.
believe it. Yeah, and I got $350 a month. And, but anyway, just magic.
Yeah, but. And back to your the personal life allowed that. The fact that that was kind of it was like it was a little section of your business. You could have made more money flipping $300,000-500,000 houses, but this was something that you felt interested and compelled,
feeling.
and you
good feeling.
You something you wanted to do, and you could use your skills to make it happen. I mean,
create some jobs, and Paul was the kind of guy. Coney County very poor, about 15% poverty, and 1,000 kids over there in poverty. So I said, hey, Paul goes by every morning, blows the horn. They come out and get in a truck. The kid sees his dad get in a truck going to work. Hey, my dad's fine. Just see him lying around the house all day. Yeah, that's not good.
Right.
So anyway, I almost said, I can't not do it. Why should I not do it?
Right.
Not what should I do, but why should I not do it?
Right.
I mean, I'm not losing any money. I'm not really killing myself. Why not do it?
It's funny that you do deals like that, and I've done a lot of creative deals, and I think people outside of even our little inner circle, they look at this stuff and they say, number one, that's risky. You're just going out and doing financing. And number two, they say, entrepreneurs, it's just a different lifestyle. So I guess my question for you would be, a lot of people have employee jobs and they're interested in becoming entrepreneurs. They're interested in doing the thing that attracted me to your lifestyle up front was that you're riding around, you have flexibility, you have time. But there's two sides to every coin. There's also you're willing to take some risk in order to have that freedom to do that flexibility. So I'm curious if you think most people have what it takes to become an entrepreneur, or have you met a lot of people? I mean, it's a dream of a lot of people. Is that something everybody should be doing?
No, not really. But there's still a lot. Yeah. I wouldn't say maybe 90%, maybe. And it's not they're fearful. They just don't understand that if you manage risk, it's not that risky.
Right.
Yeah, and you prepare for your downside. You do your worst case scenario, and then you go ahead and so what? Mm-hmm. But I think in terms of quitting your day job, I don't recommend that at all.
Don't do it. Yeah.
No. I mean, I was a college professor, so I could do this stuff, and I had a deal with a university where I agreed to, we'll just do this whenever we can. Mm-hmm. And, I'd go 2 or 3 years and I'd say, well, you want to teach some more? I said, I can't, not right now. And so I had this flexibility, which was fabulous. But I would say that you don't want to quit your day job for a long time.
Right.
And because, you can't, you won't be able to hang in there. And then the other thing is that, you can't borrow as much money if you don't have a paycheck.
Right.
So you got credit from that day job you got. Yeah. So it's some people call that a hybrid entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the model in Eastern Europe back when it was Soviet control. The people worked for the state and they had to do something else to make money.
A little job under the table.
They had to do something else to make money.
Yeah.
And in the medical system, I understand South Africa is the same way from some folks I know.
Interesting.
We can be a doctor, but we can't live on it. So they have to have a private practice. Hybrid entrepreneurs.
It's almost like the more leverage you get the better your investments get on that side, then you have more leverage with your job. You could say, hey, well, I don't want to really work those hours, or I'm not going to do that. It gets better and better and better. But in the meantime, before you cross over there, that stability of your job and the income can then feed your ups and downs, because it's an up and down game being an entrepreneur. I mean, there's a risk, and there's days you don't make money, or months you don't make money, years.
I kind of go back to the 4 quadrants of Rich Dad, Poor Dad as a model. Yeah. Maybe you're in this quadrant, and you're 40% this quadrant, 20% this one. Now you're 20%, 40%. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's doable.
Yeah. You've owned. You talked about mobile homes, RVs, you've owned land, you own single family houses, you've owned some apartments. I'm curious if after all the investments you've had, are there any that your preference now that you think I like that the best, or are they all open? What's your thought on types of assets that you own?
I try to maintain sort of a healthy indifference. Mm-hmm. Don't fall in love with your deals. Just look at this. You want to enjoy it. But don't just go crazy over, I'm going to do all nothing but this. Yeah. And I'm not even going to look around. But they all have different rewards. But I tell you what, that's a good question you just raised, because I think more than which deal I like the most is the possibility that I can jump around for different things when I burn out on. Yeah. I got burned out on student housing. I just don't do this anymore. Mm-hmm. Now, was that a good financial decision? I don't think so. Right. I mean, but God, I didn't want to do that anymore. I want to do something else. Yeah. And I want to mind a few of them, but I got out of that completely. I just didn't want to do it anymore. But when things changed too, the game changed. Mm-hmm. The game changed, and the game will change on you. For example, at student housing, the formula was get a house, put 4 students in there, they each pay $400 a month, $500 a month, you get $2,000 a month. Then the city passed that law.
Only 2 students in a house.
That doesn't work. So all of a sudden, your business model gone. Yeah. So you got to be prepared for stuff like that happening.
And then I kind of lucked into my business model, or the one that Tommy and I have done, which is I moved into the fourplex, which you found, by the way. Thank you for finding that Merry Christmas spray painted. The only way I lucked into it was I needed a place to live, and I figured there's other people my age, grad students, and I said, I want to be close to downtown. I want to be able to get on the cat bus going by. This is 1.5 miles from downtown to campus. So I was the customer,
Yeah.
and which was lower rent, more affordable rentals in
Can't beat
Clemson.
it.
So I wasn't into the house thing. I was into let's get a little 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom grad student type housing, and that's been the best thing that's happened to us in Clemson. Was
By the
that.
way, that's coming back big time, and it's always worked. You get a renter, you get a whatever, and out in California, this detached
ADUs, detached houses, granny flats.
And I've talked to people my age, and they say, "Oh yeah, of course you always had a renter. How you gonna make your payments? You'd have somebody in the basement, somebody in the attic, or whatever."
They didn't call it house hacking back then. They just called it common sense. You always have renters in your house because that helps you pay the bills.
That's exactly right. And so if you've got like here in Clemson, you got that 700 square foot granny flat or the 900 foot detached. Somebody's making at least a 30 house payment for you.
Yeah.
And that's
amazing.
What you did in the fourplex.
Yeah, that was kind of best case scenario because I lived in one unit and rented out 3 and had the entire rent paying for my mortgage payment, taxes, and insurance. That was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, how can you lose?
Yeah.
I think that most people ought to revisit that alternative.
Yeah, at different ages too, right? I mean, you don't have to be. Everybody thinks, house hacking is only for 25-year-olds, but
no. You take my age group. We got this big house I don't need, and if I had a house, what the problem is, and the people screaming about this, says all the people my age. It's not that they got a paid for house, they got it made. No, they don't have it made. Utilities going up, taxes going up, insurance going up, yard service $180. Blah blah blah. That kind of stuff. Man, I got a paid for house, but I can't afford it.
Right.
And so they need some income, and that way they can stay in their house.
Right.
Otherwise, they have to sell the house, move into spend $4,000 or $5,000 a month somewhere, and then there goes all their what they're going to leave their children.
So by having a person living in a spare bedroom or an ADU, you have a person who's there that can be present on your property. You have income coming in. They might even cut the grass for you. Who knows? You know?
Well, I'm really hot on that area right now because I think that it's a model.
Mm-hmm.
Standard ranch where you got maybe a 2-1 or whatever. I can see how you could just right off that chunk right there, and it's detached, and there you go.
Yep.
There's a lot of possibilities that you can look at.
We should build flexible housing that could be, if somebody wants to live in the whole house, fine. If you want to carve it up into little pieces, that's fine. I mean, it should be almost not modular, but you can flexible.
I think that the easiest thing to do is not change the roof line and just go in and chop off a back corner and do that. Maybe add
separate
a deck,
entrance,
and just change the entrance. And I lived in a house like that in Atlanta, in Ansley Park, one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Atlanta. And a man had bought the house, and he had us on the first floor, somebody in the basement, and somebody upstairs, and somebody in the back.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, big, nice house, big neighborhood.
And once you learn how to do that, and once you get over your mindset that you're willing to do that, the game changes because no matter where you live, no matter what your situation is, like we moved to Spain, we were able to rent our house out. Like just the mentality that you can rent your residence totally changes the game. I always think about the back door, like, all right, just in case I need to, like we could move out of this house and rent it out. Great. It's just, it gives you a different, resilience, I think.
Well, you talk about insurance.
Right.
Risk aversion.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
Worst case, I'll move into one of our mobile homes and the $350 rent places. Gary and I talk about that sometimes.
House sit for somebody.
Yeah, whatever.
We'll figure something out.
We'll figure something. That's that entrepreneurial mindset.
We're going to go camping.
Yes.
We haven't done the Appalachian Trail, have we?
I know. We need to do more of that. That's right.
That's a month or two right there. We don't have to worry
we don't have to have any housing for 2 months. Just a tent. I love it. Well, I'm going to shift gears again.
All right.
It's kind of back to our storyline. We did that deal together where we partnered, but one of the things, the biggest gifts, I say gift, I think hopefully it was mutually beneficial, but one of the biggest leg ups you gave me and Tommy was doing private loans for us to do. First, we did flips. Then we fixed and flipped a house. Then we started buying rental properties and keeping them. And you were basically a silent partner, a private lender, and we paid interest to. Yeah. And so a couple of questions I had about that was, when you first made some of those loans, I guess it was kind of a similar question to our first deal. Like for people watching this who want to do their own deals and meet people like you are, who have capital, who have experience, and I think they're intimidated sometimes, saying, I don't know why they would loan money to me. Who am I to go borrow money from somebody who has a lot of experience? I just wonder if you could talk about the other side of that of it was really beneficial for us to be able to borrow money privately from you, but how is it beneficial maybe to the private lender who also is loaning, so the people who are newer in real estate can see that, hey, this could be a mutually beneficial thing?
Well, the sweet spot that we had was that you were borrowing money from me, and you had figured out how to do the IRA thing.
Yep.
And so at one time, when
self-directed retirement account.
At one time, when it was 10%, 12%, and you were still making money, but you were just paying interest, and that was tax-free to me.
In your retirement account, you didn't have to pay any taxes.
God,
yes.
Yeah. And so that's exactly what I wanted. It just ballooned.
Right.
So I would say, why not offer it to your family if it's a safe enough deal? Because they can't. It's hard to put high yield stuff in our account. 3.5%, 2%, right now and stuff. So I think that's one thing that I think that private self-directed IRA thing is something everybody will look at.
A lot of people have it sitting in a money market or even the stock market, which is fine. But if you're a real estate person, there are people who have $500,000 retirement accounts or $1 million retirement accounts who want to put some of that into real estate. Yeah. And they would be happy to get 8%, 10%,
and you
12%.
were, and what you did, which I think adds a lot, is you said, I'll take care of everything for you. I'll fill out forms. I'll do this. I'll get your account set up and all that. And you had a real good relationship with those people, and they would do that. And so I could just loan you money. I say, here's $200,000. Give me whatever percent we got here, and just send the interest in every month. And then you say, well, what if we sell that deal? We start over? No, we don't start over. We just substitute collateral.
Just get another house to be your security.
And so it's no big problem. The mortgage stays the same. The note stays the same. The mortgage was on a different piece of property.
Right.
Yeah, or collateral.
The other thing you coached me on, which I've really taken to heart and hopefully share with other people too, is that if you would say, Chad, if you take care of me, I mean, you could say this has some selfish benefit too, but you were thinking about me. You said, Chad, if you take care of me and you do well by me, first and foremost, then number one, I'll do more business with you, and that's good for you. Yeah. Number two, I might tell somebody about it, and then you'll get another private lender. Yeah. You really sunk in the idea that don't think so big. Take care of the people who are right in front of you, and do well by them, and then you'll never have to worry about money again. And I didn't. We kept it small.
Right. We did.
And you coached me on that, but that was a really big lesson.
Well, the other reason was that I thought you needed to concentrate on like for me. Sometimes you had to do this form, you had to do that, and so you've got to be able to service that person, the little stuff that pops up. And so I always felt, well, Chad will take care of it.
Yeah.
So, but if you got 15 people, I can't get to you this week. I'll get you in a month from now. That ain't gonna work.
Customer service lacks, and that is what the relationship between the borrower and the lender. That's what's different. I mean, if you want to get a bad customer service, you can just go to a bank. You can just put your money with some big institution. Whereas what we're talking about is a one-to-one relationship.
Right.
You're putting your money with a certain person on a certain property. And you can call me up and say, hey, let's go have coffee. Let's talk about this or whatever.
Right. Well, I know you were used to some of your family, but you're really doing your friends and family a favor to let them make a deal where they make 10% rather than 3%.
Yeah.
And particularly older folks. And I think they're very skeptical about too many investments. And they stick their money in a bank and they make nothing. For a while you were making absolutely nothing on your bank account.
Yeah, it's a little different in 2024.
And they leave it there.
Yeah.
And they never move it.
But that stuff goes up and down. So if you have I was kind of sad last year when we paid off our last loan with you, but we had done it for 20 years in a row. We had interest paying, and it was a long run.
You might say, well, I don't want to take advantage and use my family and my friends. Well, you're protecting them from being used by the bank.
Right.
You got to look at it that way. You do a CD at the bank and you don't go in and renew it. Like down here at Truist, for example. They're nice people. But 4.5% I got for 5 months. Well, it rolls over and I don't come in that, within 10 days. It rolls over not at 4.5%. Rolls over basically zero.
Right.
And so if you're not watching this stuff, they love that.
Yeah.
So I think it's... not only being a good guy, it's keeping away from the bad guys.
Yeah.
And I hate to call people at the bank bad guys, but banks are bad guys.
It's the reality is that they're not always out for your best interest.
They're not. They're not.
There's some good ones out there, but they're working for a bigger institution who has their own criteria, their own.
I mean, it's just this culture. You know, we were Wells Fargo stockholder, Wachovia. I mean, they just had all kinds of stuff in there, gotchas. They live off gotchas. Yeah. Just like the airlines. It's a tough world out there.
Yeah, I think the thing that you and I mean, you convinced me of, but is if you can keep it small, you can keep your relationships, then you can run your whole business on these small relationships, the small and mighty kind of idea and you actually gave me that feedback because back in 2008-9, we had several situations going on, but I had this impulse that a lot of people do in the business where like, well, let's just get bigger in order to grow out of our problems.
Right.
And both you and Tommy separately said, your feedback to me, as I remember it, was, Chad, like, you have 5 or 6 lenders right now, and you're doing a great job taking care of us. If you get another 5 or 6 that go buy these more properties, then you're not going to be able to take care of the ones you already have as well, and maybe you won't get as much money because of that. So, like, you kind of pointed out nicely that it's not always all it's cracked up to be to scale and grow, and there's lots of headaches and there's lots of risk that happen with that. Whereas keeping it small, you can get big with little deals. You don't have to sacrifice. It just takes a little different shift in mentality. That was really helpful feedback.
Well, a guy told me, I was doing some training for a company, and he said, what we used to do was to tell the people, when you leave this program, we want you to answer 4 questions. What am I doing now that I need to stop doing? What am I doing now I need to do less of? What do I need to do now that I'm doing that I should do more of, and what should I start doing? Now, that sounds pretty simple. Boy, that's pretty deep, because what it's saying is that you start with always pruning. Stuff's going to creep into your life.
Yeah.
And you always got to say, this is stuff I need to either stop doing altogether, or I need to start doing a whole lot less of it. And so that's going to eat you up, even if you don't even realize, if you're not getting rid of stuff and keep adding stuff into your life.
The clutter of life, not only in your closet, but the activities and relationships and everything else.
And then if you don't do this getting rid of stuff, or don't ever add it, then you never will get over here and find the stuff that you're doing that you should do more of.
Right.
That's the good let the good dog have pups. Like, you've got to stay on that. You got to figure out what that is and go with it. And as long as you go with it, but you can't. Don't get big just to get big.
Yep.
That's a killer.
Yep.
You just call it big dealitis.
Big dealitis.
Yes. No. I got 50 houses. Yeah, you lose some money on 40. Are you happy?
You used to tell me stories, and I saw it personally in 2007-8 of so many people who went for the moon, and you hear the Elon Musk story, or the person who made $1 billion, but you don't hear like the 99% of people who crashed and burned and who lost. That's not. It's not fun to talk about that story.
Well, I think, again, just realize that you do. I don't know about whether you adjust or not. That's what Dabo Sweeney's dealing with.
Right.
Do you adjust or do you stay with your philosophy?
Yeah.
But I think you've got to review your portfolio fairly regularly and say, I need this, do I not need this, do I need to do more of this?
Right.
And the thing that's the easiest of those 4 alternatives is to do more of something you're doing well now.
Right.
To go out and start doing something new that you've never done before, even though it is a good thing, that's gonna probably have a learning curve on it. You're probably going to lose some money till you get it going.
Right.
But if you know already doing something, like, for example, let's say mobile homes, all right? Maybe find out, mobile homes is my niche. And it is it's a good one. It's a headcom good one. But you stick with that, and then that kind of morphs. Like, I don't want to do mobile homes anymore. I just want the land. Oh, okay, that's different. So, but your point back at the beginning was, don't go crazy just trying to get big.
You can have everything you want in life. Back to our whole point of that list that we make and say, what do you want to do? Like, if you keep your eyes on that, it's not a financial thing, but the business and all that should serve that instead of being taken over by the business. And that was talking about lessons early on that it was not only the demonstration you did of saying freedom is my number one thing. Like, I don't want to do any business model. I don't want to do any deal that takes away from my flexibility and freedom.
Right.
And I was like, that's exactly right. And so I've passed up on jobs. I've passed up on deals, passed up on syndications. Damn, I could have made a lot of money going out and, raising $20 million to build some big apartment complex. And that, I know how to do it, but it would have been stress. It would have been, and I already had enough money. So why add that extra? Yeah. Because it would have sacrificed flexibility and freedom. That was, to me, it was like, wow, that's
has
number
a
one.
ripple effect. That stress and all that stuff, affects your family. You read about how these guys had 3 or 4 marriages, and the guys are dying at 50 and all that. And it wrecks your health and your family.
Right. Yep. Well, thank you for that. And I thought it'd be fun. We've talked to some stories, but there was always some aphorisms or some, so sometimes Nancy, your wife, would kind of roll her eyes when we were talking. You're like, you just got to remember, let a good dog have pups, or find a niche and fill it. And so I want to go through some of these because I remember these, and they really helped me thinking about the business. And one of them was, let a good dog have pups. What does that mean? How do you apply that to business?
Well, I'm gonna go back to that 4-step thing I talked about before.
Yeah.
You got to find a good pup, the good dog first.
The good deal.
The good dog. No, within your portfolio.
Okay. Within your
property, portfolio.
Good property. Yeah.
Yeah. This is where you've got some things going. What's the good dog you want to have pups? Mm-hmm. So you got to get rid of a lot of other stuff. Yeah. And so you focus on that dog. And again, go back and say, I need to quit doing this altogether. Bam. Mm-hmm. Now that's free time, free money, what you got. I need to cut. This is okay, but I need to cut it back in maybe half. Okay, that's more time you got. Yep. And then you go over here and you might say, well, what do I need to start doing? Wait a minute, don't go there yet, because when you start something new, you got a learning curve. Take something you're already doing well now and just do more of it. Right. And you know how you got it figured out. So that's letting a good dog have pups. But again, the people say, well, how do I know what's a good dog? What I just said, you go through your portfolio. It's portfolio management, basically. What you do with stocks or anything.
Paying attention to your income, your wealth.
Diet.
Right.
Yeah, what I need to quit eating, what I need to, you do it with your whole life, you do that.
So just an awareness of paying attention, measuring, looking at your portfolio.
Assessing where you are and everything.
I had a metaphor that kind of came to me a couple of years ago, doing exactly what you're saying of pruning your portfolio. Because I was in the backyard and we were pruning fruit trees or pruning my blueberry bushes, and I was like, that's exactly what you're talking about. Is you got to look at the dogs that aren't your good dogs, and you got to prune them, sell them to somebody else, let somebody else take that dog, and keep the winners and sell the losers. And that's a cleaning up. In gardening, that makes it more fruitful. It makes it better.
There are a lot of metaphors.
So this conversation actually went on for another 5 or 10 minutes. We had some technical difficulties where we lost the end of the video. But what I told Dr. Stone in that end was that I appreciated him, that I was thankful to be a mentee with him and a friend, and that I wouldn't have done what I've done as a real estate investor and as a person without his help. So thank you, Dr. Stone. Really appreciate it. And thank you for watching this and listening. If you've got anything out of this in my conversation with this mentor of mine, I actually have another video that I think you'll like. This is with a more of a long distance mentor of mine, but equally important, a guy named John Schaub, who wrote a book called Building Wealth One House at a Time. And I have a conversation with him about his style of investing, how you can buy properties that cash flow, single family houses in any market, and how you can use long-term principles that have worked for him for 50 years, over 50 years, to make a lot of money in real estate. And in that conversation, we share a lot of that. So check it out. There'll be a thumbnail above me that you can click on, or you can click on the link in the video or the podcast description below. See you in the next video.